of November 22nd, 2022 at noon. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ellison.
Here.
Tom Baylor.
Here.
Chairman is absent. Jeff Guard is absent. Malia Meyer
Here.
and Schaefer here. Kristen Carpenter here. And Ken Jones.
Here.
That's a forum on council.
Here, topic today is 2023 city budget presentation, the preparation. Andrew Howard.
Thank you. So in front of you, the packet that you will be working with today is still a working document. Please keep that in mind. We did our best between the last work session that you held last week and today to adopt the directions that you recommended to further refine the budget, looking for expense savings, looking for revenue options. So the document in front of you reflects that effort and that work, and city staff, department heads are in the room to answer any questions that you might have. I do want to say that because I say this is a working document, obviously your feedback is critically important to how this is finalized. But city staff continues to work to find cost savings. And case in point, I've been in negotiations around our health insurance plan, and we may see change in the cost structure of that. I know that Chief Goss and the police department have identified a few opportunities for revenue production. Of course, all of us are still looking for cost savings. So with that in mind, I will open it up to the general fund and entertain any questions. And again, staff is in the room to specifically address departments.
Hey, who's up? Who's up first? Go ahead.
In the general fund is that ARPA funding, the 248 is now part of the general fund.
I took a portion, and I think I mentioned that before, that we were going to use a portion of that to pay for the road matches for Whiteshed and Second. Those are one-time, well, not one time, we have several matches that are required, but they are not an annualized part of our budget. So and this was reflected in the last budget as well, as the ARPA funds of the 200 and something is for those two matches specifically.
Okay, that 248, sorry. Okay, thank you.
You know, Tom Baylor.
No questions yet.
Councilmember Meyer.
No questions yet.
Please, you.
I do have a question. I mean, at the risk of belaboring this point, just so I understand it, that the transfer from the ARPA fund, at one point that number was, I mean, the amount that the city has received was like 500 and some odd.
72,982. It isn't reflected. That's one of the errors that I've noticed, is that I didn't put the 248 there on the revenue line. So that is a correction that will be reflected in the next budget.
Well, the version we have says 248
On the revenue, on the expense.
Revenue. Interfund transfers in.
Oh, interfund transfer, excuse me. Yep, there it is. Yep, it's there.
That's 248.
And then on the expense side, in the very bottom of the bond, matching fund requirements, let me get you the number. Which number? It also should reflect 248. With any luck, and if not, then there's an error.
I see 248, 423 on page 21.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, but then isn't there another 300,000?
Yes, that is not allocated and not budgeted. It was my understanding that we would hold that in reserve for you all to maybe use for capital, maybe reimburse the permanent fund, whatever your decisions are, but try to minimize the expenditures of those ARPA funds at this moment in time, and certainly not put into an annualized budget.
Okay, thank you. That's, I was just trying to wrap all that in my head.
I guess like a comment I have, it's not a question, is for, it's too late this year to look into. Like new tax revenues, like with that fish box idea, but if we got started. On something, trying to, figure that out, or something like that out, if there's a way to capture something like that from sports fishermen, or, but yeah, just getting started on that kind of thing earlier in the year, next year, before it gets to budget time, and we don't have, a lot of time to work with the airlines, or whoever it has to be to make this happen.
Point taken, yes, that's the plan.
Not a criticism.
No, it's definitely the plan. We just do not have the time to integrate those things in this year's budget.
Yeah,
Questions? Can you, I may have missed it because I missed a couple meetings, but what is the $90,000 donation?
So we are actively seeking funds from other entities, specifically the Rasmussen Foundation, the Parks, the Community Foundation. We received a $15,000 award, which will be moved into 2023, because that's when the expenses will happen. There's quite a few grant dollars on the table that we'll be bringing in through the general fund, which hopefully will offset some of the expenses that are in here. The 70,000 does offset expenses right now. I mean, the 90.
And I have another question then. On the, and again, I apologize if this has been passed over already, but the $60,000 in the equipment and furnishings for the city manager.
Hold on. Which page are you on? You just,
I don't know, I wrote it in my notes. It's on the city manager's budget. City manager's expenses.
yeah, I don't see it either, so.
Okay, well, it's not there, it's not there. I have to look through all of them.
I think it was under finance,
Maybe that was it.
page 8. Equipment and furnishing 60,000.
Yeah, that's the one. It says we're only getting finance 60,000 in equipment and furnishings.
Is it the front desk?
Yeah, there's a proposal to, there's been some issues around security and safety of the front desk area. We've had a few incidences where people have come in that, have made our staff very uncomfortable. So there's a desire to try to reorient things so that people can't walk past the front desk and walk into City Hall offices without some kind of barrier. The other thing is that the way that the finance department is currently structured and the way that this building works, it doesn't, you have to go through people's offices to get to other people's offices. So there was some interest in moving some doors around so that the offices work better with the public. This is one of those things that we have APEI, which is our public insurance entity. They'll be coming here in a week or so to do an analysis of our workspace and specifically the liability concerns about our desks and our office spaces are oriented to provide maximum safety for the employees that we have. That's a number we can definitely consider in a different place, but right at the moment, that is what that is.
Yeah, I don't get a say in any of this, so I'm just making comments and questions for everybody, so. Yeah, I would have probably thought that would have been a capital item, not just part of the general fund budget, but that's.
And I think you're absolutely correct there, and I think that might have been an oversight on our part, so next budget we'll have that identified in a different way.
Anybody else have any?
Yes, comment?
Yeah. Hey, Tom.
Yeah, and going back to that subject there with the offices, I guess I would appreciate if council not included any recommendations that whoever came up with before we start spending money, just kind of show us what you're thinking about doing. Kind of hard to believe. I mean, we paid a lot of money for engineer and architects to design those offices. If it was designed wrong, that's kind of interesting, but I can understand the you do have kind of direct access. You can just blow by the front personnel to get to the offices. I'm not sure what your thoughts were there, but I'd sure like to have those shared with us before we spend any money. Thank you.
I actually think that number, now that I look at it, it's totally in the wrong line. It should be up under professional services, 60,000. That's where it should be. It's in the wrong place. Because I was sitting there going, wait. I'm very happy you guys are identifying these things because I've seen this so many times. That the 60,000 should be under professional services, and that provides for accounting assistance. As our staff builds to a place where we can survive without a finance director with a higher level of skill. So that $60,000 pays for that contract. So if you would be so kind as to move that up, and again, that will be reflected in the next budget.
Anybody else? Got more comments? Okay, then I'll just go through some of my comments here. And they're just general, and yeah, we're gonna do the capital, or I mean the enterprise funds later.
Just general fund right now.
Okay, so just general comments is that we've got about 575,000 in one-time funds in this revenue side, which includes the ARPA, which is for the road. I understand that. It does include the interest earnings, which that has only been happening the last couple of years. We're not rolling over the interest into our permanent fund.
And just for clarity's sake, this is interest from our general funds and not from the permanent fund. The permanent fund earnings do roll into the permanent fund.
Okay, and it includes the donations, which may or may not continue. The parks and rec budgets, we've talked about the employees on that, but that ends up with being a 62% increase in our Bedarky expenses, a 23%. Oh wait. The parks maintenance was 62% increase. The Bedarky was a 23% increase, and the pool is 67% increase, which is overall pretty substantial for the revenue generating. That only generates 132,000 in revenue total for us. The school budget in this is at $2 million. although the first half of the year is substantially more than the second half, and that can always be adjusted, but just so that it's in your minds, I think anybody's kidding anybody up here that that's gonna be an expense sooner or later. We're gonna end up being at the max for that, so. Something we need to keep in mind that that's not part of this, and that will likely be added later. Same with the chamber is only in here at 90, which is more than last year, but I think their request was 130 or something like that. So that will be something that we need to consider in the end as well. So and overall, the budget is 13% increase in spending over last year, which maybe isn't a lot in the scheme of things, but it's you know, that isn't sustainable year after year for very long. So we need to figure it out. I wish that this budget included some transfer of general fund monies to the permanent fund, but I recognize that hopefully we're gonna take care of that pretty soon with the movement of the general fund monies in the sweep account and et cetera, that the staff is considering dealing with at some point to get those earning interest. And although it's part of the enterprise funds, we need to be have those funds separated so that the Harbor Enterprise Fund is making interest on its depreciation account. The water and sewer need to be making interest on their.
They are separated.
Yeah, they're making $500 on $2 million for the harbor. They're not making what they should be for interest, so we need to get that taken care of. It's separate from the budget, but we need to deal with how our funds are stored and allocated, and what's making money or not. We made, what was the interest on, what's the total interest we made on our permanent fund this year?
Around
400,000. And what was the interest on?
4%, sorry.
What was the total?
I don't know.
dollar amount? Must be close to that, 300 something. It was 4% of 9 million. That's pushing 400,000 anyways. You look at our general fund and we had 5 million in that average. Should have made half of what the permanent fund did, and it made thousands instead of hundreds of thousands. So we're missing the opportunity at making substantial interest. We're going negative now with inflation rates, so we need to at least recoup part of that. So anyway, those are my general comments on the general fund. Yeah, Kristen.
I was just gonna say, so I know we're have the general fund budget in front of us, and that's what we're mostly talking about it, but there's concerns with what we're spending, and what's people wanting to put, some council members wanting to put more into the general fund reserve. So isn't there's the 300,000 that we, from the ARPA money that we haven't allocated yet, and there's school bond debt reimbursement money that we haven't allocated yet either. Right, that was the 1.9 million, and I see there's 950,000 in here used as revenue, but that still leaves $1 million and another 300,000 that we haven't talked about where to put it. So anyway, so there's still quite a bit that we haven't.
Yeah, I agree. There's money there. We just need to do something with it and not leave it sit in the.
I mean, right, and I'm saying we're not spending all of it. We're still allowing,
Right.
we're putting some into.
I think it would help to also have a, we got the reports that had the total amount in the general fund et cetera, but I just haven't seen, at least recently, a list of what is allocated of that and what is unallocated. In other words, meaning part of that general fund is harbor depreciation monies, the sewer and water depreciation monies, the Kodiak Camper Park balance, the 911 fund is, it's all part of that, and those are what I would consider allocated already. Those aren't spendable for anything. We could use them to, balance this or that, but
They're
ultimately,
obligations, they're liabilities
Those
against
are-
the.
those belong to the enterprise fund, or, they belong to the 911 fund, so, it would.
So every time a financial statement comes out, the balance sheet shows all those fund balances, and each of those are getting allocated interest. I'll have October statement. I believe Barb said she was able to get that for the next meeting, so you'll have all those fund balances and the amount for each of those funds. They are separated on the balance sheet.
Yes, my point is, to get the last word, is that they're not invested in high yield earnings, they're invested in 0.015 at First National Bank. So
That's a risk
that's,
decision that we took, or that a previous council took about how much risk we wanted to take with investment.
no, but it's being left in the general fund sweep account is my bottom line, and that doesn't seem to be there.
And just to clarify, the entirety of the $5 million bond is now invested in Amlet at 3.5. And an additional $2 million out of the sweep has been moved to Amlet, also at 3.5%. And that was effective 2 weeks ago.
Good, thank you. Any other questions on the general fund stuff? Councilmember Meyer? Last chance.
Yeah, I am a little worried about the hike in the parks maintenance, Bedarkey, and the pool. I think those are very necessary services, but kind of like you said, those are high increases from one year to the next. No real comment on whether that's right or wrong, but that is something that's just sticking out in my head that does make me a little worried about this budget when we have other things that we need to spend money on, like we always do. Good news is, I guess we do have some other money that we haven't allocated yet. So that's just where my thoughts are right now. Thanks.
So to Parks and Rec, again, we have Parks and Rec chair here as well as staff. But I did want to say that when I first started, Parks and Rec had taken pretty significant cuts in an attempt to balance the budget. And in doing so, positions that had been filled were left unfilled. And so this budget, while it does increase in certain areas, it also goes a bit of a ways to bringing us back to status quo so that the Parks and Rec department can operate. It's been very difficult for the existing staff to maintain the parks maintenance budget, to maintain the facilities and keep up with that with very small staff. And I'm sure that the parks folks here could answer any additional questions around that, but I did want to just remind you all that there were fairly draconian cuts, maybe that's the wrong word, but big cuts in the FY19 budget. And that's all I need to say. Thank you.
This time, Councilmember Baylor?
Yeah, well, those cuts were made because the manager said the existing manager at the time said he'd balance the budget, and well, that didn't work out so well. going back to the previous comment on the funds and be invested in what stated their previous councils decided what risk to take investing. And that's exactly the point. Previous councils took it. We've never gone back and looked at it. You know, if you're in bonds last 10 years, you lost money. Now you can stick that money safely in a bond and you get anywhere from 3 to 5%. So what I've been saying all along, we need to have an investment company that's nimble and handles this stuff. We can't expect our staff, our city manager is not a money manager. We need to get somebody that can give us some good information, and you got $1.9 million sitting there. It should be invested, and there's nothing safer than a bond paying 3 to 5%. So we need to get to that point, and we need to look at our policy on investing, and it needs to be changing, and we need to do it with the advice of professionals, and it's something we need to look at every year. So that's my comment on that, and I do also have some concerns on the raised budget here, but I have concerns, but I don't have any solutions. So I'll keep monitoring that. Thank you.
This is
Yes,
Melina.
yes.
Can I make another comment?
Go ahead.
On page 16, under the street maintenance, the chip seal maintenance, I know that did we last year take it out and then put it back into the amended budget? I can't quite remember, but this year it has nothing for chip seal maintenance.
Yeah. Sam's gonna speak to that.
It was in the budget last year and we did expend a portion of it. We put it into the capital this year. Since it's sort of a capital project, so it is in the capital budget at 65,000.
Okay, great. I just didn't want to see us not keeping up with those type of maintenance projects.
Last chance at the table for general fund comments, questions? Not seeing any, so let's move along to the enterprise fund.
Sure. I did want to make one comment is that, as we all know, the cost of everything have gone up significantly, and so for instance, health insurance right now is increasing 10%. Gas and fuel costs are increasing, so unfortunately, I do believe we would be closer to last year's budget if we weren't dealing with a lot of these really sizable increases in just stuff. So, in services. So, we're definitely keeping an eye on that, and we'll do our best to kind of get these numbers down some more. But thank you for your review and your comments, and we'll see what we can do to get those taken care of, especially those investment concerns and some of the other things that you discussed. So on to enterprise. This is the first time we've seen these already. There are some changes that we're going to need to make, but I do each of these enterprise funds is designed to be a standalone business unit where its income and expenses balance at the very least. And they do all contribute back to city in administration fee. In the water department, that number was overlooked, so we already have an issue there, and we're doing our best to get that resolved for the next round. But in the meantime, the fee schedule drives some of definitely drives the revenue for each of the enterprise funds, and I don't know what would make the most sense to you, but we can have each department come up and speak to the enterprise fund and answer any specific questions. And I also, I'm looking at the room and realizing we have Parks and Recs folks here, so I just wanted to remind you that the last meeting you had wanted to have some indication from the commissions about how they felt about the budgets that were presented. So I don't know if any of you would like to hear from Wendy Rainey, who is chair of the Parks Foundation. We also have school board here. It's cool. But if anybody has any specific questions, again, there was interest in knowing what the commissions felt about the various budgets, and that's an opportunity right now with someone in the room. So if we want to go back to that with Parks and Rec, or if we have any additional questions on the school, that they are here, and if not, we'll just continue forward with Enterprise.
Anybody like to say a few words?
Sure, thank you, Wendy Rainey, Parks and Rec Chair. So the Parks and Rec Department has had a long history of reactionary spending. We have had budget cuts so dramatically taken, we're kind of the low-hanging fruit department for this week. But with the new comprehensive plan for the city moving forward and strategic plan, the community decided that a priority for the city was to maintain recreational opportunities for Cordovans. And we saw that need when we went through the COVID thing. So with that being said, we now have a leader that is fiscally knowledgeable about budgets and spending, and it's time for us to go back and take a look. As everybody is aware, this environment is not an environment that you can allow buildings to just exist without preventative maintenance. And that's what's happened with both the pool and Bedarkie. As a commission, we're standing behind Duncan's requests to increase fee schedule and to start taking a look at some preventative maintenance with those buildings and understanding where we really are with all the facilities. We're looking at some creative ideas with the skaters cabin and maybe working with other agencies in replacing that and the possibility of taking that off the city's plate. But we are looking forward and moving forward, but as with anything, those facilities are not going to continue to exist if we don't put some money back into them. We have a pool liner that's going to need to be replaced sooner than later. The Darkie came out better with the engineer's review than I expected. Frankly, that building scares me. And you know, it's just time to maybe give a little love back to Parks and Rec and put some money into those facilities if we want to continue to have them available for Cordova. So the council is behind the proposals that Duncan's moving forward. We are doing some internal looking at you know, the specifics, but as a whole, the increase in fees and the increase in budget, I feel is necessary if we're going to continue to have those facilities for use. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for Wendy? Thank you, Wendy.
No, actually, I've got a comment for Wendy.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, it's
Wait till
well, it's nice, and I appreciate that the commission showing up and giving us input, and appreciate all you guys' work. But just realize, and I agree with what you've said, but just realize that this probably will mean in the near future we're going to have to raise property taxes in order to cover these costs. So I hope that always is in your commission and other people's conversation, but we just can't print money, and there's only enough to go around. So I agree with what you said, but just everybody needs to be considerate of the fact that at some point we're going to have to raise taxes to cover all this stuff. But if that's what the community wants, and if that's what the community is telling you, then that's what we're going to have to do.
Thanks, Tom.
Alex, you have any comments from the school? You're good with the 2 million, right? Off the record.
Good day, Alex Rustin, superintendent. Yeah, I mean, looking at The city's proposed contribution for the spring sort of part of our fiscal year, that's right in with what you had taken action on approving this past summer. That's subsequently what we shared with the Department of Education. And so looking toward our fiscal year for next year, which starts June 30th, we will be requesting some additional funds to help get us to where we need. But as you mentioned earlier in the comments, that's probably a conversation later in the spring, probably to take a look at as we work on our budget. We understand what our student numbers will be, and then sort of the expenses that we anticipate having. We'll be able to fine tune what that request will be. Probably not terribly significantly more than what the council is looking at $2 million, but probably a bit more than that.
Any questions for Alex? Thank you, Alex.
Do you want to move into enterprise funds? Would the body like to have each enterprise fund staff person forward?
There's no Tony, right?
I just texted him, he's probably gonna be on his way, he was dropping off the engineers and things.
We could adjust who comes up first. It's totally up to everyone, but you all would find most useful.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead.
can I make just a quick comment? It may be a little lost subject, but since we've got everybody in the room, I'd sure like to see if the Parks and Rec and the chamber and the school could all get back together and maybe get that bazaar back over to the high school where it belongs, where everybody would be happy. Thanks.
What bazaar, the holiday bazaar?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's it. It's all chamber now, right?
yeah, we took, we city said we were no longer able to do that. And so the chamber has taken that event on, and we could certainly have a conversation with them about that.
Alex?
Yeah, thank you, Alex Russell, Superintendent. Yeah, I guess I would just maybe take a moment to say on the record that the chamber has not approached the district about hosting that event there this year. I guess word on the street is that we have said no, that we weren't interested. So I'd like to publicly say that that's not the case, that we haven't been contacted about that. And after this meeting was planning on going over to the chamber and just sort of learning what type of information is being communicated to folks who are asking. But we would welcome that event back at either the elementary or the high school, because I think just the access and proximity to folks, vendors and shoppers alike, really increases the experience for them. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's all. So that's what everybody was suggesting, was that everybody get together and chat about. We have heard a lot of comments. I don't know if anybody else has, but I've heard plenty of comments about the venue and preferring it as the previous years. This isn't necessarily the best venue for that type of show. So anyway, capital, we want to go through section by section. I guess we'll skip the harbor then.
Enterprise.
Or enterprise, yeah.
Yeah, Tony's on his way, so I'll. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll start with water, sewer, refuse.
And it was, so we doing. Are we talking bees? Is that one as well?
Yeah, I think they're related, so,
so currently the fee schedule increases, I'll start with water. That's what page I'm on. And is 5% for heavy, high 5% for light industrial. Although we may need to reevaluate that, we are getting hammered on electricity and heating oil. Probably electricity though, it's just killing us in both water and sewer. We're $110,000 on electricity for sewer. So. Yeah, we might have to reevaluate that for water. We're gonna work on that a little bit, this thing, we're starting to take money away from how much we're transferring into the depreciation fund at this point. So, I mean, unless you have any real questions about water, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. They have increased their training budget for 2 reasons. We have some new people on staff. The second one is the Vector truck we bought is a stick. Most CDLs are only automatic, so we have sent Joel and Joseph to a place in Wasilla where you can go for these 4 days and he puts you through all the things. You have to go through the whole thing. And then you can get your cert upgraded to include manual. I don't know, just say so that we still have a few more to do that. That back truck's important for everybody to be able to drive, people on call. You know, we need to have as many certified CDLs as we have. So currently we have Daniel left to go over there, and we have two other new employees who are not CDL holders as of yet, and at some point we'll send them over for a longer, more intensive training. So those are kind of split between water and sewer, those kind of expenses, because these guys do want both. So that kind of explains the travel and training. I don't know if any other questions. 50,000 for professional services. Yeah, DEC is requiring more and more, taking more training, taking more time. So I'm open for questions.
Councilmember Jones?
Yeah, I guess I had a question on the, you mentioned the electricity. I see in the 2022 amended budget, it was 6,600 and year to date says, or that's the 2023 is 65,000 almost. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is accurate.
Sounds like it's even more.
Yes, and
So-
it was something went amiss in that 22 budget, or yeah, 22 amended budget, should not have been $6,600.
That's what I was asking.
It's never been, maybe 20 years ago.
Was it maybe supposed to be 66,000?
That's my guess.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
It's amazing the little errors you find after you.
Yeah, that made
Yes.
sense.
Yeah, we were, that was definitely something that was overlooked, and it's definitely 6,600 is in another century.
Questions?
So that was water and sewer.
Yeah, I'll give a quick update on fees on sewer, 5% for, again, the heavy users, all industrial and sewer. The other thing that we have learned, as we did a little bit of an audit, I guess, of what fees we're bringing in, what is that, for some reason, we need to be the industrial rate as defined in the code, which includes canneries, and it is only been being used at the commercial. That will bring in some substantial increase in revenue. And it's not just canneries, it's, other larger users. So that will be helpful, because as you can see in their budget, we are only transferring 10,000 into depreciation. We have $110,000, and we hope that's enough for electricity next year. Costs will continue to go up, and hopefully maybe we can get a grant to upgrade our systems and get some more economical pieces of equipment. The blowers, the pumps, fun things.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what you said about, there's a different rate that should be applied for like industrial versus commercial versus
Residential.
residential? Okay, but right now we're just using the commercial. Oh, okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood.
So we'll fix that.
No question?
He can go first.
Councilmember Baylor?
On the electrical rates, I'm assuming you guys have taken care of the low hanging fruit, like lighting. It sounds like it's pumps and other things. Is that correct?
Yeah. Then we, you know, at EAC, we did transferred all those, we put a Toyo in there, trying to do everything we can do. A lot of it is the clarifiers, the blowers, the pumps that aren't variable frequency, all those kinds of things that we need to upgrade. And we're slowly working on the pumps, those we can sometimes manage in the system, but that, it's really we really need to upgrade what I call the boom pump, which is the clarifier round of wastewater. Those
You have like
pumps in there.
Do you have like a ballpark estimate of what we're looking at investment in there?
Kind of depends on what we do, yeah, millions. If we do a total upgrade, I have GB Jones. Doing a sewer assessment upgrade for the plant as well as some of the, pipes. Like the force main that goes across the, inlet. Is Odiak area was put in the '70s. So some of those clean outs and things have some issues with letting water in, which causes issues down the line. So I am hoping to have that in the next month or two, and then looking hard for grants to make those work.
Are there gonna be any grants in this Build Back America? You know, the trillions of dollars you got, are we looking at those type of things, or do we have somebody that could look for us?
Okay, man. They keep telling us, we keep waiting, AML is looking for us,
We have staff here looking.
Yeah.
It's a huge focus area of us right at the moment.
yeah.
Water quality is supposed to be a big concern, so you think it would be much better.
Yeah, I haven't seen too many EPA stuff coming down and things like that. Same on the water side, we're looking for grants, booster pump. To help get enough water out during pink season. Some piping issues. Our water systems are good, we just went through all that LP2, so those parts are pretty good. Just got some more money to UV 3.5 million gallons of water a day. For weeks and weeks and weeks.
Councilmember Jones?
Yeah, I was just noticing that seems like the sewer budget is a little bit lacking on detail compared to the other ones. I was hoping that maybe next time we look at this, well, I mean, if you just compare it to the other enterprise funds, it's revenue and expenditures, this just has the totals. It doesn't have any sub items.
No expenditures for sewer?
No, I mean, it has,
Doesn't have a breakdown.
doesn't have a breakdown, I guess
Right,
that's the
yeah.
right way to say it, so I
I didn't look at the packet before I was looking at my clear bill, so.
And how much is it in the staff and how much?
Right.
Yeah, so just like the water one, I know what you're saying, but
Yeah.
that it must have got, this along the way. We could print it. And email it, the staff will be exactly the same as water, because they split everything in half. So employees are split in half between the two departments. Expenditures are a little bit different just because of the treatments, so there's a little bit that the electricity is more because of clarification and those kinds of things. And professional services are similar, same thing, DEC permitting, all of those things. It's, the detail would be similar, the cost might be. You could email it, I suppose.
Thank you.
And then refuse, the only change there is I created a commercial rate. Refuse has, residential and commercial are paying the same rate, and that seems quite rates. So we upped residential 5%, made that our commercial rate, and into the future we'll be able to, you know, charge the users who are using more. And so that's the only difference in refuse. And they actually went down. They had $35,000 in their budget last year for the hazmat. And we're gonna try to do that annually. So that we don't have these huge chunks coming up in time. And with refuse, we'll be looking at the depreciation fund to keep that lean to out at the landfill for the new equipment. And that's our big budget. Refuse, bare fence is always on the line, or if that's not gonna come out the depreciation fund, we don't have much money. So we're still trying to figure out how to make that happen.
Jones?
So on refuse, there's been some comments that I've fielded from the community on the current operating procedure for taking the trucking it out to the baler, or not to the baler, sorry, trucking it out to the landfill. Is there a way that we can get some sort of a, I guess, mesh cover for those?
Sure. The truck.
Yeah, for the trucks and then require their use, because there's been some problems with garbage blowing off.
Okay.
You know, it's not every trip, but you know, every once in a while. And yeah, I
Okay.
feel like quite a few complaints about that. I don't think it's a huge budget ask, but
Do that.
and then has there been, I guess, any evaluation on moving to transfer stations and bear-proof dumpsters and
Well, we have air-proof dumpsters. Again, the issue with we have a transfer station, it's White Shed. That's where garbage goes and then transfers out to the landfill. People are always welcome to take the transfer. But if you wanna put dumpsters everywhere. We don't own enough land to do that. And then there's just so many variables with that. Bear-proof dumpsters are great, they are not totally bear-proof, as we know. There's a lot of people interaction there. Also, if you tried to put it in the right of way, people are gonna have to walk to their dumpsters, or they're gonna have to drive to their dumpsters, and some people may have to go a fair amount, because we just don't have the space. Those would be the big hurdles, and then, you know, you would just be increasing, I mean, I think a lot of people think, well, then we could save a lot of money. But you're just increasing the amount of time the dumpster trucks are on and collecting and picking them. And then having to determine what we do with people who can't get it to the dumpster. There are people who are just not. So then you have those random things. So yeah, it's a lot to think about and how it would actually happen. And I have talked with Charlotte a little bit about trying to do some summer dumpsters to alleviate maybe some of the bear issues in the high density areas. And I think we're gonna work on that this winter. We have some ideas for that.
yeah, no, my personal experience, we have a dumpster at the bottom of our neighborhood just because the hill, the trucks can't make it up. And it was always a problem until we got the bear-proof dumpster. Now it's great because the bear can't get in the dumpster anymore.
They can get in those dumpsters, so they can actually pick them up and get in. It's not as common.
Mhm.
And we go and put latches on the ones they are getting into. So yeah, they're not perfect, but
Yeah.
they're helpful.
Substantially better, and I know that, yeah. Having that bear-proof dumpster eliminated the, or greatly reduced the amount of bear sightings in our neighborhood. Also, just having the dumpster at the bottom of the hill, I find it more convenient. For me, I don't have to remember, oh, it's garbage day, oops, I missed it. I'm not gonna deal with all the garbage in my garage for a week, I just take it down whenever I want. So
Yeah,
it's,
the people who are 5'2" and try to open them dumpster lid, that's metal, don't have that same. You know, it's just difficult. Yeah, it's an all around difficult.
and I think that in these, they went to install dumpsters over there. And it helped with their bear problem, they went to the bear proof.
Where at?
In Valdez, they've got like the big plastic round dumpsters, so,
Mhm.
and I know they put those out in neighborhoods. And once they bear proof them, that helped.
Yeah, it's not, yeah.
But that's, I mean, that could be hearsay just from people who live there. That
Yeah, I've heard people also say that they just can get in those dumpsters as well.
Yeah.
But there are things we can do to prevent it. I mean, a lot of it is people as well as dumpsters. It's not all about the dumpsters. You have no other trash around your dumpster either. So a dumpster in the middle of an area where there might be trash, even if it is bare, the bears are there because there's trash that they can eat into and they get the dumpster on the way by. There's things like that, but yeah, I think some high density areas such as the trailer parks. Couple neighborhoods, if we can make it, we actually put a dumpster on the other side. Up from Odiak, Cliff Trail, no. The trail that goes by the skate park, the road that goes by the skate park, we put the dumpster at the top of the hill, cause they had garbage cans. And they were constantly getting hammered by the bear. The dumpster in, put it at the top, we can't access it there in the winter when it's, if we put it down. And that seemed to, I didn't hear any concerns out of there, this, bears. So in some places, I think it's, yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Any questions? Hey, Sam.
One more comment.
Go ahead, Councilman Baylor.
Well, it would be interesting, going back to the energy costs for these pumps and things is that if we see what the delta is, but if we put new pumps in, what would our savings be? What we're paying out, does it get to the point where, you know what, if we can't get a grant, if we went out and got a bond, is our energy savings helping to pay that payment? I guess follow my drift there. We got the new project manager, maybe they could take a look at that, but doing these energy efficiency things, sometimes you look at the cost and it pays for itself with the savings. So that's what I'm wondering, what that would look like.
Yeah, I think we'll get a lot of that information from G.D. Jones, because that was one of the things I talked to him about. I said, we gotta figure out how to get these costs down for electricity. How do we do it? And his first thing was, we gotta replace that old stuff you got. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Yep.
Tony's here so we can move to harbor.
Afternoon.
Hello, Tony.
Thanks. I was just at the airport. So on the harbor, we raised rates on all moored 5% for daily, monthly and annual. We raised our dockage rate for, well, wharfage rate, I should say, and then, which was, I think, 3%, and then, sorry, I'm not back with me. And then our dock use fee went up, I think it was 19% on that one. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And just to note, the percentage change is not necessarily related exclusively to the price increase. It could be increased usage.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so we went up on, we also went up on dry land storage on that, 2% on that. And that's most of the, updates on that. A big one was, we looked at was, our wharfage when it comes to fish wharfage. We talked about doing that and raising it up quite a bit more. The issue is that when we do that, we charge everything without coming up with a new line item. We charge lumber, we charge. So everyone's really getting hit really a lot higher with the way things are right now with the inflation, that we thought that probably wasn't a good idea until we actually pull out and maybe do a code change on where we have to separate out the different items that would be considered in those wharfage fees for tonnage, whether it's by the ton or by the linear feet, anything like that, so. And, yeah, we left travel lift, we left that alone for the actual lifting of the boats. Like I said, we did, change the storage and went up a little bit in storage. And those are our biggest our biggest changes, we didn't make a lot of changes across the board on, like labor was pretty high, we just matched it up to what was on our fee schedule. So,
Questions for Tony?
How about those ramp fees? Are we keeping those the same?
would you like them to go up, Mr. Baylor? Yes,
Well-
we are keeping them the same.
Well, I think it's one heck of a deal for anybody to use that ramp in that harbor for that little bit of money. It's, be truthful with you, so. I've advocated that those that don't use the harbor, don't have slips, should pay more, because there's a lot of maintenance cost on that, so. I think it's a bargain at that price, and it could go up.
I mean, we keep it the same, but we get them on transient, whether it's daily, even if they're just sitting there for the day to wait, pick the clients up or whatever. If they're not a stall holder, so we get them on daily rate and we get them for the ramp. I think we just need to do a better job of enforcement.
Questions? Tony?
I guess I have a question on the travel with these. That seems low to me. I thought we did more than that.
I would bet that we have not got all the payments in on it yet. So, yeah, we don't always get it all. We might get just the one way until we go back in. Some people like, you usually pay them all up, but a lot of guys just pay the one way until we put them back in.
Okay.
A lot of it comes,
Except
unfortunately, the following.
130 to 135 lifts a year. I thought, is that round trips or is that just one ways?
One ways.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why when the harbor bought it and council came to agreement that lift would be every time it got picked up.
Okay.
So, yeah, so yeah, we're like 147, 150 right now.
Yeah.
Questions for Tony? In line? Councilmember Meyer?
Yeah, I just had a question of, because the budget looks pretty much the same for 2022 and 2023. I know there was increase in costs and slip fees, but how does the harbor renovation fit into this budget, or how was it considered or affected?
The money for those renovations coming out of the reserve fund, for the harbor, our savings, and then of course grants. So we're not pulling in this budget, this is not in there for that.
But is it going to affect things like the slip fees towards the end of the year, or how much the travel lift is going to be used? Or is that all just going to be a separate kind of supplemental for the harbor rebuild?
It shouldn't affect the slip fees. We don't know exactly what we're doing for the storage for the 23. We're gonna work out storage down the shipyard and with travel fees. We're still trying to figure out how to come up with a boat plan of what we're gonna do for that.
And I want to add, because I was thinking the same thing, but I think the assumption is, and it's correctly so, is that all of this activity is happening at the end of the season, so most of the boats are going to be pulled out. It doesn't really affect, there'll be no prorated rents. Most of those activities are pulling boats and keeping boats in the harbors or not, all happen by the time this project's due to start, so the impact on the budget there will be none revenue wise.
Okay, so we'll probably see it maybe in the 2024 budget though.
That's probably
Or
right.
maybe not. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Like I said, we're coming up with a boat plan.
Hey, Councilmember Jones?
Yeah, let's see here. Professional development, 900% increase. What's your plan there?
Oh, that was, we put that in there. That is a one-time thing to get a CDL for, John Tabilas. It's about 10 grand and send someone out for CDL. I think it's weeks worth of trainings.
And is there any sort of, I mean, I don't know the rules on it, but once we pay for that, is that you locked in to work for a certain number?
Well, that's a discussion with, I'd have to have with Helen and HR, a contract.
Okay. Sounds good. PERS relief minus 64%. Seems like,
So remember this year, they calculated every year and for whatever reason, calculation is lower. So it's a good thing for all of us across the board, across all departments.
Other questions for Tony?
I don't see the travel lift trailer in here, and I guess that was because it's on.
It's going in, it's coming out of the reserve, so, yeah.
Capital.
Yeah.
But it was in 20.
It was this year.
It's on the capital budget.
But we're buying it in 22, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well. We'll get it in, final payment will be in 23.
Right.
Yeah. June.
Question for Tony, last chance, last call. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
And the last is Zodiac.
Good afternoon. Just a couple of questions, really queries. Seems interesting to me that ODX is actually an enterprise fund. So then it doesn't actually give any reserves, it's money appreciation stuff here. So unfortunately, it's the year-on-year fund with investment, which is going from year to year. So I guess just in terms of things, as you'll see, they have gone up significantly. That's because I'm proposing we actually do some redevelopment of that site. I'm not sure if anybody's actually been there. It's not a pleasant environment. But it needs some investment. For example, a number of our sites do not have power anymore because the podiums are broken and can't be replaced. So we need new ones for them. They were only installed in 2011 or 2012 and no longer manufactured, can't be parts. It affects our capacity. I guess in terms of the revenue side, I'm budgeting for in seasonal campers. In this, it's all dependent on fishing that we have no control over who's actually going to come. What I've observed is that we're getting less and less seasonal fishermen come over a number of years. I'm not projecting that this number is going to increase. And word on the street is that people don't want to come back. So yeah, so that's a concern because you know I've gone back through budgets and it's always been told to me that it was always at capacity. I'm sure that was really ever the case. The budgets I've seen, it's never really met its revenue target since a number of years. So I've put the revenue down at 51,000, which I think is realistic. The expenses obviously gone up because as I said, I want to redevelop some of those sites. They're not actually flat, straight, have no services to them. So people are paying $975 a month. Very little service. So we should start to consider installing water to each site, installing sewage to each site. For example, there was a dump station. I've never heard of anybody actually using that dump station. So yeah, it's a concern. Yeah, things are starting to feel a little bit getting necessary. Paying reasonable money and should have a level of service which is of a modern campground. In terms of fees, I'm suggesting we keep our $975 for $32.50 a day long term. It's inclusive of tax. We put up the short term to $35 a day It was a discrepancy this year, where it was actually cheaper to say short of the longer term. We've actually had a number of one-off campers come through this year. It was amazing the amount of people who actually have come to Cordova and camped even in tent at that site. So then we need to create more tent spaces, proper tent spaces, not just saying yes and crap. So that's the reason for why I want to increase the expenditure. Any questions?
Well, one point I know the plan was, well, the goal was to kind of upgrade that whole space, like redesign the layout, upgrade the bathhouse, you know, like move things around basically to make it a better and more efficient space. Is that still like a long-term plan, or is it more fixing what we have?
Yeah, I think long term, yes, that's what we need to do. It's a complete redesign. In the interim, until that money becomes available, so we've got 25,000. I believe still somewhere as a capital project that was appropriated in 2019. And price was sought, well, for 25,000, what we had was just going to get some geotechnical work. It wasn't actually going to get to design stage. So we need to look at that. Yeah, but yes, I think it needs some reinvestment. I think it was originally developed in the early 80s. And hasn't really kept up with the pace of people's modern expectation.
Yeah. So is the gap being projected to be made up with capital fund money, or just waiting and see what happens with revenues?
Yeah, like as I said, I'll put a number of things in there for repairs and maintenance. Simple solutions to improve quality, things like picnic tables, fire rings, actual parking, concrete pads, things like that. You know, ultimately, yeah, we need to decide what we want to do with that space. Because if we're not going to get the seasonal campus back, and I have got a crystal ball, yeah, we need to make some decisions on how that operates.
I think originally that whole ball field was developed with Land and Water Conservation Fund money, right? And so it seems like that could be a source for doing some upgrades or redesign if we're talking about different uses. Yeah.
Well, when are we gonna get our ferry back? Cause that's when we'll get more. I mean, that thing was always at capacity up until the fast ferries went away, and now it's not. So, there's been some shifts in the fishery that have contributed to that as well. A lot of the Russian American families who come here for the summer are now buying in Bristol Bay, and their families are staying over, so.
Some of that was COVID too, right?
Yeah, some of that was COVID.
Yeah.
So. I think it's a good idea to upgrade that. I think we'll see it at capacity again, especially with some upgrades, but I think it's just gonna take a little time for that to cycle back.
Well, I know outdoor recreation is one of the economic sectors that's growing the fastest right now. It's growing faster here than this outdoor recreation sector of the economy for the US as a whole. So I think it's definitely worth considering. Do we want to invest in it as a way of increasing visitors coming to town?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that you had some money in the capital budget.
Yeah.
So that will be something that we would discuss in January.
As far as the tent spaces, I know we had camper spaces and tent spaces down where the new science center building is, and maybe I was just out of town when they got used, but it seemed like it's always empty, so.
They got used.
I definitely saw
Oh, yeah.
use. Oh, yeah.
Lots of use.
So I was just out fishing. So,
Yeah. So yeah, we haven't got a replacement.
yeah, I do feel like maybe we could do a better job of advertising that space if you have available spaces out there. Throw it up on Facebook. I bet people come here. There's always people calling me looking for, places to stay and.
Right, the issue is they're not in good shape. I
Right,
mean, we can advertise it, but we don't have that much to offer.
Yeah, it comes down to the value for money. 975, it's not too much going for, you know, in terms of increasing costs, because people just like, it's not worth it. Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a comment.
Yes,
Go ahead, Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, so there's more of a comment or something for you to consider. I know, gosh, was it 15 years ago or so when Jeff Hawley was still the head of the Parks and Rec. He was having a discussion with hiring a maintenance person, but he didn't need a maintenance person full-time. His thoughts were hiring a maintenance person and he would be split between the city and the parks, you know, doing things, and even had a shop set up. So I know he actually had that discussion with me, see if I was interested in it. It never got traction with the city manager at the time, which was probably about 7 city managers ago. But I don't know if you've looked at that as another way of maybe cutting some costs, of splitting that duty. I mean, you know, we go back to that time and they actually had more programs and more things going than what we have now. So it's just, he thought at that time that he could use a maintenance guy like half the time. Thanks.
Yeah, I guess we've taken all the salary and wages out of that line and just applied it to parks and maintenance. Because we were paying 30% of somebody's wage to maintain their place, and in reality it was not 30% of somebody's job. So we just haven't like that. We also have the summer tent, whose main role is to help keep their place clean. Yeah.
Any other questions? Duncan? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Duncan.
I guess I just have one comment that, you know, when we start talking about capital, if you put together capital asks to improve that place, I'd be interested in supporting that. I just want to see it first.
Yeah, of course. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, we've gone through all those various funds, and I did want to also share that in addition to looking for infrastructure money, we are also looking at private grant opportunities where possible. Parks and Rec is huge, and I think we will find some resources to bring to the table from sources outside of the taxpayer dollars. So we'll be working hard on that. All right, fee schedule. Each of the departments, enterprise funds anyway, kind of alluded to their cost recommendations on the fee schedule. I don't know if there's any other specific questions, but yeah, we talked about the fee schedule last time as well, in terms of the general fund revenue and the proposals in the year. But again, I'm happy to answer any questions, and we do have city staff here who can also address any questions that I can't answer.
Questions on the fee schedule? Everyone we already discussed. Councilmember Meyer, any other questions on the fees?
Nope, I think it was well covered. Thanks.
Councilmember Baylor, fee schedule?
Not at this time.
Dave, questions on fees? Fees must look good. You're making enough money, so. Any last items, Helen?
I just next steps. We're going to continue refining this document. We'll be needing to put a final document in front of you and the public next, Susan.
Wednesday the 30th.
Wednesday the 30th. So I'll refine this and get it to you by the end of this week. So that you have the weekend to look it over and any last adjustments. I don't know if you want another work session or if you're content to go forward with a final document, which again, obviously you can make any adjustments at the final meeting, but my hope is that whatever document I present will be reflective of what you are looking for and that would again be next Wednesday. So that is the question. What does the body want in terms of next steps? What would be most useful for you as we get to a final document next Wednesday?
Anybody have any heartburn about any of the numbers in here?
I would like to see us raise the chamber up, maybe not all the way to their ask, but we really haven't had that conversation.
I also had a question about the chamber, view that they had kind of more capital ask. And so I was wondering if that would be part of our capital conversation, or if that was a conversation we needed to have before we finalized our budget.
It's up to you, but since it's one-time money for a very specific project, it could very easily roll into that capital thing. And then the additional requests that they've asked for their general operations, again, last year they were at 81. We moved them back to where they were the year before, which was 90. And that was an increase from the previous year. So their ask is 110 from 90. And yeah, if you guys want to have a conversation around that, that would be useful and helpful, especially if you want to change the number.
Interested in changing that number from 90, Member Jones?
Yeah, I'd like to see us raise it to the 110, but I also want to have a meeting with them and attach some strings and some criteria on what we want to see for our investment there. Like, we want to see more marketing materials come out for the city center, and we want to, you know, goalposts, I guess, to, you know, say, yeah, we're going to raise this, but we want to see this happen within the next year. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, as well as like, I would like to see it raised, but with, you know, maybe that's a conversation with the Cordova Center staff, you know, like what kind of marketing they need, or for the center, for the events that they have, but yeah, with parameters in place for what we want to see. So I think it'd be a lot to ask them to do this extra work without also compensating them for it, you know, in some way. So I'm in favor of raising that.
Well, I wouldn't consider it extra work since it was work that we were supposed to be doing for the last few years. That was the MOU that we had with them when the Cordova Center got built, and they just weren't doing the work. And, you know, another thought that we've talked about this in the past is moving them into City Hall, which would save us a lot of money on keeping that building up and running. I know that's been discussed a time or two. I don't know if that's even an option at this point, but something to think about.
I don't think we have space at City Hall, but we definitely can have a conversation with the chamber about expectations and deliverables. And yeah, I just need direction from all of you on what number to put in this budget, and then I'll need to find ways to pay for it.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm not sure it's accurate to say that they haven't been doing work they should have in the last few years, because we actually haven't, that I know of, they've never officially been charged with marketing the Cordova Center. So I think we're actually formally having this conversation for the first time that I know of, but so I don't think that they should be penalized for not doing it in the past, that's all.
Isn't that what MOU is? A member, you know, that the understanding was that they would be marketing it. I mean, we do have that.
We had an MOU that was put in place when the Cordova Center was opened, which very clearly articulated our expectations around them marketing the center. I believe that MOU was in place. It's never been dissolved, but I don't think it's been enforced. And so, and I'm sorry, Kathy Sherman isn't here because I know she's much more aware of how that all worked, but there is an MOU with very specific things that were put in place, and I think there's not a general understanding of what that is anymore because no one's really knew it existed and enforced it. So it's something we should have a conversation. I will also note that the MOU allows either party to back out of the agreement with notice. Again, there's no documentation of anyone backing out of that agreement.
Maybe it's time to do a new MOU then. So we had two, Kristen, were you in favor of adding money to the chambers 90?
I'm still thinking about it.
Councilmember Meyer, how do you feel about raising the chambers general?
I would feel comfortable with it if we have a new MOU in place or talk about the one that we currently have, kind of along the lines that has been talked about already. I kind of agree with everything. The fact that we own the chamber building, it's a pretty small building. I don't know if that's a discussion for right now, but I would like to keep that on our radar for the future. You know, I don't really like the idea of the city being landlords, essentially, or giving out money without an MOU or some kind of understanding. So I think if we just get that straightened up, I would be in favor of increasing the contribution to them.
So it sounds like council is generally in favor of giving them more if we have more. A better MOU or a current MOU maybe. Is that clear? That makes.
So what I will do is, in this next budget, with the $20,000 increase that has been requested, and I'll talk to Chamber, and see if we can get an understanding that that is something they're willing to do. And I'll make sure at the council meeting where you approve this budget that we have a better understanding of that.
Thank you. Any other items on the budget we need to have staff add, subtract? Final comments on what's before us today? Hearing none and our business being completed today, we will adjourn the work session.